Now, welcome back to the Think to Thrive podcast. As always, my name is Adrian. This week or this month, whenever it is you're listening to it, I'm blessed to have with me a very good friend of mine, Fraser Grant. We've known each other for a couple of years. And Fraser, thanks a million for coming on the show today to share your story.
Thank you very much for having me, Adrian.
Very welcome. Fraser I'll allow him to introduce his story a little bit more, but it's one that really inspired me to have him on the show. He went from one particular path, completely has changed direction, taking control of his life, and now the world is his oyster. So, Fraser, if you wouldn't mind, please tell the listeners a little bit more about you.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to say thank you for everyone tuning in. Hopefully you get some value from this podcast. It can hopefully inspire you to perhaps take some, chances in life to better yourself. But really quickly then, I grew up in Scotland. I'm based in the UK. You can probably tell from my accent. And growing up, I had a traditional upbringing. I was taught to go to school, get good grades, get a good paying job. And that's what I did. I went to school, get good grades. I left school when I was 16 to get an apprenticeship because I didn't really know what I wanted. I just knew I wanted to make money. And I remember seeing a show, Adrian, on TV called The Apprentice. We had the UK's version from Alan Sugar. I know the US has Donald Trump back in the day. And I watched that and I was really inspired that people are creating something from nothing. And I said, I didn't understand what an entrepreneur even meant, but I said, I want to be that. And so anyway, I left school, started actually fixing cars because my older brother is a car mechanic. And I didn't know what I wanted. So I kind of fell into doing that because that's what he did. I said, I'll do this for a little bit. You know how it goes. People are like, I'll do it for a couple of years. I'll get my certification and then I'm out of here. And that was, between 16, I thought I'd leave at 19. Fast forward 8 years. And I'm looking back thinking, wow, what a quick 8 years that's been. I'm now 24, still fixing cars. And the kicker was I was fixing cars I couldn't actually afford to buy. So I was exposed every single day to somebody else being able to afford things, and I'm driving them and I'm fixing them and I'm driving home in my car, which was not as nice as the cars I'm fixing every day. That's when I realized, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if I continue on this same path for the next 20 years, I am still going to be just working basically on a kind of treadmill, never living the life I want, going to holidays I want, traveling, basically giving back to my family how I want. So it was then, by the grace of the universe, it was the lockdown. I know some people had a tough time. For me, it was actually one of the best times in my life. And it was a pivotal moment because up until that point, I was actually going out and partying a lot at the weekends because I hated Monday to Friday or sometimes Monday to Saturday. I worked 6 days a week sometimes. So my escape, I didn't even realize it at the time. I couldn't articulate it, but I would go out to the clubs and the pubs and get drunk and wake up with a hangover and spend all my money, couldn't remember the night. And that was a horrible pattern that I was doing for a long time. And then because everything is shut, that was my point where I said, do you know what? This is my opportunity now. I'm going to actually look into how to make money online, how business works. And, I found many great videos. I started diving into YouTube and found Tony Robbins. And I said, who's this guy? And I seen a video and I was really inspired. He led me on to the next YouTube suggested the next video. It was Bob Proctor. And I thought, wow. And then really the video or the audio perhaps that done it for me, Adrian, is the next one that queued. And I still remember it clear as day. I was living with my parents still. I had my bedroom / home office / gym during lockdown. And I'm working out. And The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale came on. Okay. And it stopped me in my tracks. And I looked in my mirror and I just looked at myself dead in the eye and I said, whoa, I know exactly why I'm getting the results I'm getting. I don't know exactly why I'm not getting the results that I actually want. And that audio, for anyone listening that hasn't perhaps listened to that, go to YouTube, listen to The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. I always recommend it to anybody that is brand new to personal development or business, because it's really the foundation, I believe, of everything. And understanding your mind, that your thoughts, setting goals. So anyway, that inspired me to step into the business world, Adrian. And I tried lots and lots of things. Anybody that goes on YouTube and types in how to make money online, there's a million different things. And I was throwing money at everything, you name it. I was trying drop shipping, Amazon FBA, sales funnels for businesses, affiliate marketing, trading. I put tens of thousands of pounds into everything and anything.
Yeah.
I knew I was a bit skeptical of it, but I knew what the lane that I was in currently, fixing cars, was never ever going to get me the results I wanted. So I thought, if there's even 1% chance over here, 1% is a lot better than 0%. So let me try it. And I realized after a while, it's not really the method that you want to focus on. It's really the mentor, because you can make a lot of money in real estate, cryptocurrency, selling courses, whatever. There's a million different things nowadays. We are very blessed, but I really started looking for who has the morals, who has the lifestyle, who has the income and the impact that I desire, and what is it that they do. And I was studying Bob Proctor at the time. I was fortunate to meet my current mentor today, and he was working with Bob's wife, Linda, at the time, in the profession of network marketing. I didn't understand what that even meant, but I just knew if these people are involved, I need to be involved. So yeah, that's what kind of led me into the industry that I'm now a part of. And it's been fantastic to me, and it's allowed me to walk away from the 9-to-5 lifestyle and help other people do the exact same thing, and basically live life now on my own terms, and create a lot more freedom for myself and help others in the process. And I just think it's a fantastic, vehicle for people that perhaps don't have a lot of resources, or they don't have the right guidance to actually take that step, initial step into the world of business or entrepreneurship.
Wow. For the guys listening, that's exactly the reason why I wanted Fraser on the show, is because it's an inspiring story to make that journey and to see that journey in somebody. There's a lot there, so we'll try and unpack a little bit of it and go back on some of the things you say. The Stranger's Secret by Earl Nightingale. I love that. I have the book, I have the audio book, I've listened to it on YouTube, and it's something that I continuously listen to over and over again. And for those people listening, there's the one part of it, and this is the bit that really hit me, Fraser, so I'd be interested to see how it impacted on you, is the story that he gives of take 100. Now, this was written 70 plus years ago, so the world was slightly different in those days. So Earl mentions taking 100 average men. We can translate that into more modern and say average people. Okay, so anytime I say man, I don't mean particularly a man, I mean people. He says if you take 100 men at the age of 25, by the time that that 100 men have reached the age of, let's say, 65, only one of them is wealthy. 2 or 3 of them have become financially independent. But what's that? That's 4. You say 4 of them are financially independent. 1 of them is wealthy, and 95 of them are haven't really learned how to become financially independent or wealthy. So we learn how to make a living, let's say, by the age of 25. But for the next 40 years, we never sort of progress past that and learn how to become financially independent. That's the part of that book that had a huge impact on me, and I want to be one of those 5. Yeah, one of the either financially independent or incredibly wealthy. Did the same part of the book have an impact on you, or was there some other part in particular that sort of resonated with you?
That part certainly did as well. One of the parts that really I remember impacting me was, if you think in terms of negative, and negative thoughts, you will get negative results. If you think in terms of positive outcomes, you will achieve positive results. And I just thought to myself, because I'd always been very smiley, and it used to be commented on because I used to be positive, but at the same time, unaware, I was complaining a lot with a smile on my face, and I'd complain, "Oh, this place is terrible. I hate working here," but having a joke and having a laugh about it. So I always had a good attitude, just totally unaware of how my words and my thoughts were actually shaping my reality. So that there was like a light bulb moment where I said, you know what, I'm going to stop saying I hate my job. I'm going to stop saying I hate working here. I'm going to be grateful for it, because it's allowing me to build income and allow me to other things. And I started just looking at it in a much different light. And yeah, that was a really simplistic but impactful, sentence in that audio in life. All it is your attitude towards a situation. If you can't change a situation, you can change your attitude towards it. as Erin Nightingale says, the magic word is attitude. And that's one thing that I found in my whole journey, is the people that make it, they have an incredible attitude, even when things don't appear to be going well. And trust me, I went through a lot of challenges over the last few years. It wasn't like a straight linear progress to where I'm at now. But I've always took responsibility for anything, be it out of my control. But I've always think it is in my control, and I can change my attitude towards it. And you're learning something because of it. So that would be, one of the most impactful bits from that audio is. Mm-hmm. You always have a choice of how you look at a situation and how you respond to it, positively or negatively.
Yeah. Very true. And the strangest secret, as he says, within that is that you become what you think about. If you distill it down to the core messages, that you become what you think about, and you have complete control over what you think about. So you have complete control over what you become. I love how simple it is, and it's a really easy message to share with people. Putting it into practice, though, Fraser, can be a little bit more complicated. So what advice would you give to the folks listening about how to take that simple message and to put it into practice?
Yeah, really good question there, Adrian. So for me, environment is everything. So you want to try and control your environment, anyone that's listening to this, as much as possible, because we were born perfect. And if you weren't born perhaps into a wealthy family or a wealthy environment, then you will have learned lack, you will have learned poverty, you would have, instead of learning abundance, riches. So we learn based on our environment, meaning if you've learned lack, poverty, you can also switch that, and you can learn it by putting yourself into a new environment. So many different things. One of the things, I've got my goal card right here in front of me. Okay, for anyone watching that listens to the audio, you understand what we're talking about. I carry this around with me, and it's a reminder, of my goal. I've got my screensaver on my phone. This is actually a funny one, Adrian. I didn't tell you before we started the podcast. So I've got Dubai on my screensaver. My desk here, I have a whole Dubai skyline on top of my desk, because I went to Dubai in 2021, fell in love with the place, and I said, I'm going to live here. I just found out this morning, a couple of hours ago, it's all confirmed that I'm moving to Dubai in August.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that because it's all around me. I kept thinking about it. I had the Burj Khalifa on my keychain, on my car keys. So I'm always, whether I'm consciously thinking about it, I'm working on my laptop, subconsciously, I'm seeing Dubai every single day. So you want to really saturate your mind as much as you can with what you want. I'm very intentional with how I set up my environment. My wife sometimes doesn't love it so much. I mean, I go crazy. On the ceiling above my bed, I've got like quotes, money flows easily, effortlessly to me. I've got the passage that I know Bob Proctor was fond of, talking about when your belief matches with any state, you fuse with it. And that whole paragraph right above my bed, so I see it last thing at night, I see it first thing in the morning. My whole house, I'm intentional. I've got my Ferrari hat sitting up here, thinking rich, just everywhere I look. Because I realize most of the time we are not consciously thinking. It's hard. It's the most laborious thing that you can actually do is think. That's why a lot of people that can really think and are disciplined in their thinking make a lot of money and have a lot of impact, because it's a hard thing to do. So I understand that. So I try and set my environment up to think for me when I'm not thinking, and then obviously going and exposing yourself to bigger and better things. Like for instance, little story, when I went to the Ferrari dealership, that's where I got that hat. For those watching it, I was going through the worst financial part of my entire life. My business crumbled. I had made some really big investments into something that didn't pay off, and I was on the verge of bankrupt. And I went there dressed to the nines, confident, and they thought I was in there to buy it. And I'm getting shown around the workshops. They're giving me free merchandise. I got to road test the cars because I'm living in my goal. I'm not living off of physical circumstances. I understand that I need to go and experience things and feed the spirit and not the flesh. Because if you're just feeding the flesh, meaning going off your current circumstances, you'll continue to repeat that pattern. So I believe we always get challenges like that to see how we react. And trust me, anyone listening, yeah, if you go to these environments that you can't afford the cars, you go to the restaurants and you just sit down and have a coffee that you can't afford to eat there, or you go to the clothes shop, you're going to feel uncomfortable. It's natural. But how long do you want to feel that uncomfort is the thing. If you don't ever put yourself in it, you're always going to have that resistance. So you want to just keep going over and over until you start to feel, oh, I feel comfortable here. Yeah. And now, if I go to the dealerships, I'm prospecting them for my business. I'm like, do you drive one of these? You don't? Why not? Oh, okay. And I feel comfortable in it now because I went over and over, and it's just a normal process to be in these environments now. But their environment is everything.
Yeah, there's a lot in what you said about. I did an interview with a lady called Alpa the other day, and people quite often hear the "fake it till you make it," which is about pretending to be the person that you want to be, and that's not entirely the message that I got from her or the message that I'm getting from you. It's because it's much more than just an outward sort of pretending. It's having this sort of deep emotional connection with the person that you want to be in order to connect on a much deeper level with the results that you want to have in the future. And as Neville Goddard said, you're living from the wish fulfilled. Yeah, you're living from that end. So the one phrase that Alpa came up with, which I absolutely loved, and I asked her, could I use it again with other people, was not fake it till you make it, but you faith it till you make it. Yeah. So you have that faith within yourself, within your core, that belief that you're going to become, and then you act from that end point. And so, I love that one. I thought that was a really nice thing to share with as many people as I can now, which is the faith it till you make it. Would you believe it, Fraser? I've never sat in a Ferrari.
No.
I don't believe I did. I think I used to, and I'll show my age a little bit, but I used to watch Magnum PI, and it was that Ferrari 208 GTB that Magnum drove. That was the Ferrari that I really wanted way back in the 80s. But no, for me, I'm a big believer in doing exactly what you said, because it's surrounding yourself in that environment, getting to see how it feels, because you know this, and all of the teachings that you do, it's your feelings, it's your emotions that has that connection that's going to drive you towards your ultimate goal. I love the idea of having, and I just thought about it because I've got this big mouse mat. It's not really a mouse mat, it covers my entire desk. And I should have one there with my vision board, which is behind me over there. And just have that on the mat instead. That would be a much better thing for me to do. And then I'm looking at it all day long. So
that's exactly what I've got, but with the Dubai skyline, the Burj Khalifa, downtown Dubai.
That's awesome. Congratulations again. It's massive, because I know when we were talking before, that was a big goal for yourself and your wife to move to there. So and exactly what you said. So when you surround yourself with it, eventually it becomes the reality. Awesome. I have a question I ask everybody, and it's about when young Fraser, or not quite baby Fraser, but young Fraser, for people who get inspired to become an entrepreneur, or to run their own business, or take that leap, quite often there is somebody that they have, not a direct mentor, let's say, when they were a kid, but somebody in their circle that they saw, and that caused them to look towards them and go, well, I'd like to be doing what they're doing, or I want to be a business person, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do whatever. Was there anybody in baby Fraser's life that was that guiding light that you wanted to aspire to?
I remember one time, very briefly, it's a very vague memory, but somebody through my family, I can't even remember the connection. I think I met him one time, and I went, he had a relatively nice house. So at the time I thought, well, he's pretty well off. And it just actually came back to me, and I forgot all about this. I went into his room, and he had a picture of a yacht on his wall, and he said, I'm going to earn no, I'm going to own that one day. And he had one of these desks that you press the button and the desk moved up and down. I thought it was fascinating. And I said, like, what do you do? He said, I do stuff with stocks. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I remember thinking, I'm going to do stuff with, stocks and things like this. And that was one of the only things. But besides that, it was actually, I think people do it for two reasons, either because they're inspired, because they see it, or it's kind of the opposite. So growing up, I was not around money. I did see my family struggle a whole lot for most of my kind of life. And I realized if I continue on your path, it was probably more so about running away from what I knew rather than being inspired from what I actually had experienced. So yeah, I just decided, I love my family to bits. They've done the best that they could for me, but I knew if I want to give my children in the future a better life, then I need to step away from the track that they're on. And if they were thinking that I sounded crazy and I was doing something that they didn't agree with, I took that as a good sign, to be honest. As crazy as that may sound to people, I said, so you don't agree with it, and you think it's crazy and you think it's this and that. Perfect. I'm on the right track.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because and how do you step away from that then? Because one of the things I preach to people, I don't preach, sorry, but one of the things I say to people all the time is you need to protect your thoughts. Yeah. It's the thing that you're in control of, and we know your thoughts influence your behaviors influence your actions, your results, etc. So the core part of it is your thoughts. So how do you protect your thoughts? How do you step away from that?
Yeah, really good question, because that is one of the biggest things that I found people, unfortunately, that they say they want more, but they're too influenced by the people around them that will actually refrain them from going after what they really want or going all in. So for me, I just took a look around me and I realized, why am I caring about the opinions of other people that don't have what I want in life? Because what I found, Adrian, is most people play small in life so that they're not criticized or judged by other people that are also playing small because they don't want judged or criticized by you. So you have a large group of people all playing way below their actual full potential just because they're all worried about ruffling a few feathers. So for me, I was quite cutthroat when I make a decision. When I found that book, Think and Grow Rich, and I read it for the first time, and that was me. I said, I'm on this mission. It's get rich or die trying. And are you with me or are you not? If you're not, I'm going to love you from a distance. And I cut some people out of my life just like that, which, some people can't do. But for me, my future family meant more than the opinions of other people. And I just said, this is it. And I fell out with some family members that I didn't speak to for 6 months and stuff. It was a big rouse, and I just said, this is it. You either love me on this mission or I'll see you next year. Type of thing. And that it's uncomfortable. So entrepreneurship, it's not for the faint-hearted. It really isn't. I would say you need to have a bigger reason than just want to make money, because if that's the only reason, you're probably not going to persist with it, go through these challenges, because it's going to be a lot harder than you're probably expecting. It's going to be more worth it than you could ever imagine, but you need to have a lot of reasons why that are a lot deeper than perhaps just making money, I would say. And that's what will help you over those little speed bumps or those little what looked like brick walls before. Once you have enough whys, it's just a little speed bump. You just hop over it.
Yeah. The really good point on the why, or as in Think and Grow Rich. Your copy is behind you there. Mine is right beside me here on the desk. And I'm on the chapter for desire at the moment. So it's for those who know or don't know, Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, said over and over again about having this burning desire. So having an emotional connection and a burning desire towards a worthy ideal, towards something that you actually want to achieve. And or as Fraser just said, the why. I think Simon Sinek is the one who wrote the book Start with the Why, and you got that one too. But it's important because you hit the nail on the head. Money is just money. Money is just a tool, and money is a result of providing service for people. Really, there's the law of compensation. I'm sure you've come across it before, is that the amount of money that you earn is in direct proportion to the need for what you do, how good you are at doing it, and how easy you are to be replaced. Yeah. And so if you're very good at what you do, a lot of people need it, and you're not easily replaced, you make a lot of money. If, you know, and that's why, who was it? I can't remember who I heard this from before, but they said like a brain surgeon, for example, makes more money than somebody flipping burgers at McDonald's, because, you know, there's a big need for what they do. They're not very easily replaced, and they are generally quite good at what they do. Whereas on some other jobs, people can be quite easily replaced, and that's don't cast any aspersions at anybody who works at McDonald's either. Just to make that clear. But it's about deciding your why. Do you ever come across, Fraser, because I know you're teaching this message to people as well, along with your group, and we'll get some time to talk about your project that you're working on in a little bit, but do you ever get people who say, well, I don't know what I want?
Yeah, I would say oftentimes, or it's very unclear, and then if I pry them and I say, listen, you've hit the lottery 10 times. What are you going to do? Oftentimes it's very vague, and it's travel, buy a nice car, buy a nice house, but it's very undefined. And that's how I was for most of my life as well, because I had never exposed myself. So that's why I'm big on the environment you have, because I'd never went to any bigger and better environments than I grew up in, really. And not taught about setting goals. And so I set goals based on the only way I knew how to earn money, which was through a job. So if I was making £2,000 a month as a car mechanic, you know, why would I even think about having a Ferrari or, you know, living somewhere like Dubai? Because for me, I was capped. So I think the people that oftentimes don't have a goal or are unclear on it, it's probably because the people around them also don't have goals, because we tend to pick up the habits of our environment. So yeah, if anybody's listening to this and you're thinking, what is it that I actually want? You know, it talks about, I believe perhaps in that start with why, you know, you go 5 levels deep, and once you get that surface level, I want to travel. Why is it you want to travel? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? And when you get down to the core of it, you probably realize that oftentimes it's not even what you really want, it's the feeling behind it, or there's a lot of different actually things that are the root cause of what that surface level result that you're looking for is. So yeah, I do come across quite a lot of people that don't know what they want, to be honest.
Yeah. Bob used to always say, well, people would turn around and say, well, I want lots of money. Well, how much is lots of? Yeah. And what do you want to do with the money? For example, well, exactly as you said, I want to travel, I want to do blah, blah. It's all of those things. The money is just a tool that allows you to do it. So it's not really the money that you want, it's the feeling in doing the thing that you want to do that you're chasing. Yeah. So as you say, I always say to people, we'll write a list of 100 things that you want. Okay. So, and that's a very difficult thing to do. I got my wife to do it at one stage, and she couldn't get past 10. Yeah. And most of the 10 was things for the family, not things for her. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, we start again. We go and we do 100. You know, I want to skydive. I want to have dinner on the top of the Empire State Building, whatever the case may be. Okay. Once you have the 100, then you half it, then you half it again, and you half it again. You get to your top 10, your top 5, and then down to the 1. Because I'm sure you would say the same thing to people. I always say is you can have whatever it is that you want, but one thing at a time. Yeah, you can't get it all at the one time, because that's a confusing message from or you're in a state of confusion, and you're chasing this and this and this and this at the one time.
Yeah.
But no, I love it.
One thing just to piggyback on that is for people that are thinking, why not? Why can't I have this and that? Because we can multitask, and that is correct. You know, we can do many different things at one time. However, you can't multi-focus. If I ask you right now, those listening, to focus on the letter A from the alphabet or the letter B in your head, and then focus on both of them at the same time, you're going to flick between A and B. You might even go that fast that you think you're thinking of both of them at the same time, but you're thinking of one or the other. So focusing your intention on one thing, one goal, is going to direct all the thought energy and all your desire into that. And I think it talks about it in Think and Grow Rich, because if you're focused on one thing, it's like having a magnifying glass and you're directing the sun's rays. You can set something on fire because it's focused energy instead of scattered like a candlelight, and it's just going to light up very dimly a lot of things, as opposed to a flashlight where they use that same energy but directed at a singular thing. So
that's a really good metaphor for it. Yeah. The magnifying glass and concentrating the sun's rays to start a fire. It's a really good way to get the message across. So tell me, you went from, because your journey that you said so far, Fraser, with trying a bit of this and trying a bit of that and whatever, I 100% can empathize with that, because I've done the exact same thing. I call it sort of, in some ways, shiny object syndrome, where I go, oh, that looks like there's loads of money over there, I'm going to go over there, or there's loads of money over there, I'm going to go over there. What is it, how would you recommend to somebody or talk to somebody about choosing the right path? As we say, that the what you do is not as important as the why you do it, but it also is important in some ways. So how would you go about coaching somebody or getting somebody on the right path for them?
Yeah, great question. I would say to people, first and foremost, find people that are high up in whatever industry and look at their lifestyle. Is it a lifestyle that you want? So for instance, if I speak to people and they're like, I want to be an engineer. I'm like, do you know any engineers? And they're like, oh, not really. I say, what I'd suggest before you commit to that path, if you want to be an engineer, that's fantastic, but go and find somebody that has been in engineering for 20 years and see if you want their life, their house, their cars, their holidays, because that's really what I did after trying lots of things. I said, you know what, let me actually find somebody with the lifestyle that was making the income and the impact, that was very much people development focused. And then what is it that they do? I didn't pick the industry. I picked the results that the industry produced. And then that was like, okay, that's why I got into the industry that I'm a part of now. So that's what I would say. Find the people that have the lifestyle you want. But that ultimately comes from you deciding on what lifestyle that is. Make sure that, don't be afraid to earn a lot of money, that if the earning potential is there for you. And that for me personally, I'm always big into personal development. So I always like to be a part of an industry that is going to force you to grow into more of who you really are, as opposed to something where you can just sit behind a screen and there's not much growth involved. So that for me, I've tried drop shipping, Amazon FBA and stuff, and you can sell products online. That's cool, but it doesn't much require you to become a different person. Whereas I would always suggest that people go into an industry that's going to require them to actually become somebody better.
Yeah. Very good. I when you're talking about that, I think of one of my favorite quotes from Bob, which is, change is inevitable, personal growth is a choice. Yeah. So make the choice to grow. We're here for a good time, not necessarily potentially for a long time, but not really. But it's growth is the whole reason, I believe, that we're here. You said after you went through a number of different businesses that you lost nearly everything. Tell me a little bit about that and how you recovered from that, because that takes a certain mindset to be able to get back up again.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a quote saying, "If you're going through hell, why stop? don't stop in hell." So, that was, things were going really well. I believe it was 2021. I was on track. I thought, in the following 12 to 18 months, that was me. I was going to be a millionaire with the trajectory that I was on, to be honest. And, I put, made an investment of like 6 figures for the first time into a project, which didn't pay off at all. And it was a flop. And that there was like, it caused also some cracks in my previous business. So business basically kind of crumbled. My income went from pretty good to like almost zero. And then I had a lot of debt because I was, listening to the likes of Robert Kiyosaki and people, and they were all talking about using good debt for assets. So for me, I've made some mistakes with that. I still do believe in those principles. But, I used debt. I was like, I'm going to use debt to create cash flow through assets that's going to end up. And then, it didn't pay off. So I ended up with a whole lot of debt, almost zero income for a little bit. And, the banks are like, hey, we want that money back. And I'm like, uh-oh. So, it was a big hit to my ego, to be honest. But you've got to suck it up. And especially, I think, as a man, you've got to just realize nobody's coming to save you. And nobody really, I'll be honest, cares about your feelings. I mean, we all say, we're here for each other, but nobody's waking up in the morning saying, I hope Fraser's doing well today. I hope, how can we make Fraser's life better? Nobody's doing that. So, we're all focused on ourselves, and that's completely, normal. People sometimes might think, no, I care about other people. Yes, you do. But, generally, empty plates can't feed hungry people. So you need to make sure that you're good. So at that point there, I've been a full-time business owner for about 3.5 years. At that point there, I had to take a big hit to the ego, and I actually had to get a job again for a short period to actually just basically get myself back on my feet. Yeah. And then I started building my business again, a different business at the same time. And it wasn't long before I was able to build that up, because, again, I'd learned a lot of lessons in life. As I mentioned earlier, if you can't control a situation, you can control your attitude towards it. And you can either get better if something doesn't go right, or you can get better. And I decided for the latter, because what other option do you have? So I used that knowledge, which allowed me to build my next business a lot faster and a lot bigger, and then was able to walk away from the 9-to-5 again, thankfully. But, it was a humbling experience, because, a few years of working, on your own as an entrepreneur, going back to that life, it made me really, really appreciate my life again now. It made me realize I became a little bit complacent, to be honest. And it's made me a much better leader. It's made me a much better mentor, much better person in general. And just made me appreciate things so much more. So anything in life that's happening to you, it is happening for you, whether you believe it or not. In those moments, I'm looking up thinking, I'm obsessed with this information. So I'm like, it has to be happening for me. I don't know how. I don't know what good is coming here, but something's going to come out of it. And, now that I've made a lot of mistakes, I have my team, the people that I help, they don't need to make those mistakes. When I have children, they're going to be much more educated on it because of that. So, yeah, I was glad I did it at the level I was at, instead of getting to the millions and then doing it. So, yeah, it was good.
I mean, there's a great lesson in that for everybody. I mean, we don't all have to lose 6 figures in order to learn the sort of the same lessons as you did. But at the same time, we need to make mistakes in order to learn. I find so often that people are afraid to step forward, or afraid to do anything. And there's no growth in that, because if you think back to when we're babies, let's say, this is the one I always say, is how does a baby learn to walk? Well, a baby learns to walk by falling down. Yeah. And it's the exact same way that we learn to do anything throughout our lives, is we learn through constant spaced repetition of trying it, failing it, and getting back up again. My favorite question that I ask myself from time to time, because we all, there's no end journey when it comes to personal development. We're all at different parts of our journey, and we all have challenges. And so the question when I come up against a challenge is what's the alternative? So either I can move forward down this path, or the alternative is I give up. Yeah. And I'm never going to give up. So keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit. Sorry, there's one thing, because you mentioned a mentor. Probably, I wasn't keeping count, but probably close to about 10 times already in about 40 minutes. I'm a huge believer in having a coach or a mentor, somebody to help you. Tell us maybe a little bit about your thoughts and how you chose the mentor that you chose, and why.
Yeah, I think very important for anyone listening, and regardless of what you're doing, whether it be business, if you're playing sports, just anything that you want to really excel at in life, it's essential to get a mentor. One, it's going to save you a lot of time. You're going to learn from all their mistakes. They've been there perhaps in that field longer than you. They've perhaps got results that you want, which is why you've decided to choose them as a mentor. And you might need to pay for that access, which is absolutely fine. People, if you start to value your time, imagine somebody that's a decade and you're into the industry you want to be a part of, and you can learn all the shortcuts, all the speed bumps, all the potholes to avoid on that road to success. Well, that's well worth the investment. So I think having a mentor is essential, because they can also see perhaps much further than you can, because they've achieved something. And the only way you're going to achieve that is by you being at a certain level of awareness on how to actually get that done. So you can then go ahead and just follow the plan. And there's, if you're coachable and you have a really good mentor, there's not even a lot of thinking involved on your part, because if they give you the plan and you're able just to execute that, then, you're on the right track for success. And that, for me, Adrian, it gives me peace of mind. That's one of the things that I love about it, because I'm not hoping, I'm not wishing, I'm working with people that have already been and done what I want to do. So for me, I relax, I enjoy the journey, because I know that it's already done, because I'm working with people that's done it. And I do it in health and fitness as well. I learn from people that, and what I like to do is I like to go to the extremes, even if I don't want to get to that extreme. But, I like to learn from people that are at the extreme, like bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia type situation in business, like, 9-figure earners, billionaires, that sort of thing. Even if I'm not aspiring to get to that level in business, but I'm like, even if I want to even get to half of where they're at, I want to get the people that are, this is their life. If you cut them open, that's all you see, and that's what I like to learn from. But yeah, having a mentor, very important for anybody that wants to achieve success in the shortest, most simplistic way possible, because ultimately doing it by yourself, is it possible? Perhaps, but you're going to be leaning on your own understanding. So you could fail forward enough times to make it happen, but why would you want to? So for me, I tried that, didn't work out too well, and
I always sort of liken it to a professional athlete or somebody who, say, a professional tennis player or a golfer or something like that. If every single one of them has probably got multiple coaches, in order to help them get better, because you get to a certain level yourself. I always think you reach a plateau where you're the effort needed personally yourself to push yourself even further forward, and most people don't have the will in order to do that. But if you are able to reach that point, and then you get a coach or you get a mentor or somebody to help you learn the next level, it's like they get a little escalator for you. And they help you get up to the next level, and then maybe you might have a different mentor that's going to help you get up to the next level, etc., etc. It's about making the journey. It's never going to be easy, I believe, but it can be easier than it can be without having a mentor. And say the likes of I'm so gone with sports now. I don't know, Rory McIlroy, for example, a phenomenal golfer, a natural golfer, an awful lot of people would say. But he's natural because he was playing golf since the age of 2 or 3 or whatever. He's been playing it all his life. But he still has a coach. And it's not that the coach is a better golfer than Rory McIlroy is, because otherwise the coach would be out there winning all the trophies. But it's about being able to look at things from a different perspective or a different angle, I believe, in order to help you twist, change, amend what it is that you're doing to achieve different results.
Yeah. I usually liken a mentor, just a quick kind of example for people, is if you're driving at night and you've got your headlamps on and you may see 100 feet in front of you, but a mentor is like having the GPS system that can see much further, and it's saying at the end of this road, you're turning right, and it's pitch black, and all you can see is the 100 feet. And you're just trusting that, in 1.2 miles, there's a right turn. And that's what I feel like having a mentor is like, is they've planned out the whole journey, and you just have to take the next step that they're suggesting.
That's a brilliant metaphor for it. Thanks for sharing. There's a really nice way to look at it. So The next question, I suppose, is you tried a number of different things on your entrepreneurial path. You're on a very particular path at the moment. Can you share with the listeners a little bit about what that is, and
Of
maybe
course.
why you chose it as well?
Yeah. So the reason I'm involved in the network marketing industry. The reason I really love it is because it's all about people development. It's all about leadership. So there's many different companies out there, some product-based, service-based, some do, a mixture of both. For me, it was really just the actual development of people, regardless of what the actual products or service was. That's what attracted me initially, and the caliber of people and the person that you had to become to actually get to the top of that industry. Because to get to, the top of the industry and actually lead massive organizations of people, you have to become a quite a unique and rare individual, a lot of skills that you have to learn. And to be honest with you, Adrian, pretty much everything I've done in my life, I've been good at, whether it be school, sports, anything. And then when I get introduced to the world of network marketing or business, I was terrible. It humbled me so much. And that's what I loved, because for the first time, if I wanted to be good at something, I was always good at it, whether it be golf, football, any kind of sports. And then when I seen this, I thought, wow, that'd be cool. And I did not have a very good start to my entrepreneurial journey. And I was like, okay, I don't care how long this takes. This is my challenge. And really fell in love with that, because you're going to learn leadership, communication, sales, relationship building, just a lot of stuff. And you have a lot of fun in the process. You get to travel a lot, you get to see the world, go to big events. You also get access to people you might otherwise not have access to. So because of this industry, I've been able to play golf and sit down with billionaires and multi-millionaires in some of the most luxury locations in the world. And I'm thinking, how did this guy who used to be a mechanic from a little town in Scotland, how am I sitting here right now? And, it's because of that industry. So the resources to get started in the industry are generally very minimal as well. So it allows people access to an uncapped earning potential vehicle, and where you can earn, multiple streams of income, but at very minimal risk or overheads, which is cool, because when I got started, I didn't have the capital to open up a franchise or a traditional business, and so I needed something with a very low barrier to entry, but the upside potential, if you put the work in, could be, 6 figures, 7 figures, or however big your goal or your vision is. And the only way you get there is by helping people. So I think Bob Proctor said it's the most moral form of compensation, the network marketing industry, because you can't just get to the top without actually developing and helping other people win. So I like that.
Yeah. Bob is a big fan of network marketing. Robert Kiyosaki is a big fan of network marketing as well.
Yeah.
And it's an industry that has made probably millions of millionaires all over the world. But it's all not that it depends on the product, but a product that you're offering can have a big impact on it as well, as to who's open to hearing the message that you're working on. Do you want to share with the listeners the product or the company that you're aligned with at the moment?
Yeah. So when you're looking at the marketplace, there's a couple of things that you want to look at, I would say, that I've learned in my experience. One of the ones, I remember listening to an audio from one of the kind of really most successful people. He's called Mark Yarnell. He's an elderly gentleman now, but he's had a lot of success over about almost 3 decades in this industry. And there's 2 core value matches that he looks at if he was ever evaluating something. So one is like the core value match is, would you put your mum or your mama, as he said, into this deal? So if you wouldn't sign your mum up to whatever it is you're doing, he said, you'll self-sabotage before you get to the big money. Because on some level, you don't quite say believe in it or think that anybody could actually win. So that's one of the things that I wanted to look at. Second thing is, do you have to how big is the marketplace, and do you have to change anyone's habits in order to actually use your product or service? So is everybody doing or using the product that you're also going to be wanting to distribute, or are you needing to really change people's habits in order for them to use this product, and how big is that market share going to be? So for me, I think anybody that I ever really spoke to, they wanted to make money, and then ultimately the making money was so that they could live life more on their own terms, and typically kind of travel and see more of the world. So what we've actually done is we've partnered up with a company that provides really incredible travel wholesale rates so that people can travel better for less. Mm-hmm. They get access to a vehicle that allows them to enjoy more of the special moments with people, because ultimately the experiences are why we want to do everything in life, is to get those memorable moments. So if we can provide that for people, that they can have something that they can use to enjoy more of the times. Because when I ask people, what is it you really want? They'll say travel. I say, where do you want to go? Where's the dream destination? And they'll list off, one of these places. And I'll ask them a question, and it's always the same things, Adrian. I'll say, what stopped you to this point? Mm-hmm. Being able to travel there. And it's always time and money. Mm-hmm. So then I'm like, well, if there was a way that you could actually create time freedom and actually be able to travel to these destinations, but do it at a lower cost so it's more accessible, would you want to hear more about it? And the answer is almost ultimately yes. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing at the moment. I have been in this industry for a few years. Previously, partnered up with a vehicle that done travel and also financial education, which was really cool. Got to help and educate hundreds, if not thousands, of people on that, which I think is great. Financial education is a great tool to be able to equip yourself for the future and the ever-changing landscape of the world nowadays, especially with the incorporation of AI and everything else. So that is really cool. But for me, I love the travel side, that you want to think of something in terms of business where there's the least friction as well. And when it comes to travel, there's no friction. It's just good times. Everyone's enjoying themselves. I travel often, and I'm heading to London this weekend for a big event. Everyone at the airport is probably going to have big smiles on their faces because they're excited. They're going on holiday. They're going traveling. So yeah, that's what I would say. But that's the two main questions. If anyone's listening to this in the industry or looking at it, make sure you would put your mum or your closest family, perhaps if your mum's not around, would you put them in? And if the answer is no, don't do it.
Yeah. It's a really good test. Yeah, I like to put your mama into the deal.
Would you put your mama in this deal?
You hit on a point that I suppose is really important. I think so. The time freedom. I suppose when people say they want a lot of money, is because they don't want to be giving up all of their time. Our time is our non-renewable resource. Let's say it's the only thing that we can't get more of, and yet people generally exchange most of their time for a small amount of money in order to live or to survive, not to live, because I believe living is about doing more than that. Yeah. But there'll be a lot of people out there, let's say, because of all of the hype and everything we hear about AI, who might be worried about what the future is going to look like if AI is stealing all of the jobs, etc. How are they going to be able to survive, first of all, and how are they going to be able to thrive? How are they going to be able to make enough money in order to live that life? Do you feel network marketing would be depending again on what company, etc. they partner with, would be a way for them to protect themselves from this future?
I would say so, because you're never going to replace human interaction. I think AI will replace many, many jobs, and many different career paths will just kind of totally become obsolete. However, there's always going to be that need, I believe, for leadership and human interaction at some level. So when you have a community that's built around people development, then I think there's always going to be a need for that, which is why I think this industry will stand the test of time. But yeah, it's an interesting, way the world's shaping up at the moment with AI. I've literally seen it firsthand, AI replacing people's jobs. I remember when I was in America a little while back, and I met this guy at a restaurant, and I said to him, are you open to looking at different ways of making money? Or are you Are you happy with how things are going here? And he's like, no, I just like to just have this and just, this is me. I'm good. We went back to that same restaurant 6 weeks later, and a robot actually served us our food, and his job was gone. And I noticed it in real time. Wow, 6 weeks ago, he thought, I'm happy with what I'm doing. 6 weeks later, he had no choice. There was literally a robot that served us our food. And I thought, wow.
Wow, that's well, I suppose that's a whole other debate, a whole other episode, let's say.
Yeah.
I'm just conscious of time, and you've been very generous giving your time today, Fraser. So thank you very much. As we sort of, I would say, bring it in for a landing, as we sort of come to the end of the interview, I ask people, generally speaking, for a book recommendation. Two reasons. One is to provide more books and education out there for the listeners, and the other is for me personally, so I can expand my collection of books. Is there anything, we've mentioned Think and Grow Rich, and we've mentioned some others. Do you have any go-to book?
Well, there's two. One that I always recommend to everyone is called The Science of Getting Rich. Really small, thin book. You can get it on Amazon probably for a couple of pounds. That book I have read countless times, and it was recommended from Bob to read chapters 4, 14, and 7. And I've read that so many times, these chapters, and that's kind of like my staple. Every now and again, I'll go back to them, read them for 30 days. That there, I would recommend. But one that perhaps people have not heard of, just because it was one of the first books that I'd ever read, is a guy called Ant Middleton, and he was in the SBS. He was like a very elite soldier in the British Army and achieved the high levels in different areas. He's wrote a number of books. I've read them all, and that one's called The Fear Bubble. And I used to be a very shy, introverted person, didn't like speaking on camera to anybody really. So this book really helped me get over my fears. And he basically talked about when he used to go into the Middle East in the middle of the night to capture terrorist leaders. He's like, when they'd be going in the helicopters with the lights off and knowing that I'm going in here to probably a war zone, perhaps in a firefight. He's like, when I'm in the helicopter, I'd keep myself calm because I realize I'm completely safe right now. Nobody knows we're here. However, when we land and I'm about to kick this door down and capture a hostage, he would visualize a bubble of energy just before the door, keep himself calm. When he stepped into it, he'd feel the rush of the energy from that, and that would put him alert, the adrenaline, and then he wouldn't stay in it for long enough. So they'd break into, say, the door, secure the room, pops the bubble, and then if it was the wrong house, say, or whatever, they had to move to the next one, you'd visualize the next one. And that for me is really was a big step. I used to do it when I first started wanting to put myself out there. I've done a social media live. I used to be terrified to go live, and I'd visualize a bubble of energy in front of my desk, and I'd be standing up. I'm like, why am I nervous right now? I'm in my house. No, I'm completely safe, relaxed. But as soon as I sit down into that bubble of energy, it's game time. And I feel relaxed to sit down and get this rush of energy, press the live button and be like, but it's all about him climbing Mount Everest as well. And he's talking about his experience doing that. But yeah, that's a good book.
That's a great recommendation. Thank you for that. The I can empathize with the going live button. Yeah. It's amazing what that does, isn't it? It's just it can really and like yourself, I'm not an extroverted person. And it's taken a lot of effort and work to get comfortable being on camera and speaking in front of people. So I like that idea of that bubble, that protective bubble, to give you the energy to do it. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I've used it I used to do a lot of cycling as well, and even when I do a lot of hiking, and it was the same thing. If you feel your energy dipping, I would visualize a bubble 10 feet in front of me. When I reach it, I would literally feel a rush of energy, like tingles all through my body, and then I'd visualize when I get to this point in the mountain, the bubble pops, and then there's the next one, because that's what he said, go from bubble to bubble. And he gave an example of people doing exams, and each question you pop the bubble, so you're not holding on to that energy from the previous question in case there's a question you couldn't answer. So there's a lot of different ways to adapt that into different people's situations. So it was a very, very interesting kind of technique that he used.
It's something that's quite visual. You're able to. I'm a big believer that we think in pictures, so being able to picture that thing is quite handy for people. Cool. If you were able to go back in time, knowing what you know now, to not quite, as I say, baby Fraser, but young Fraser, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Very good question. I would tell myself nothing is impossible, as cliche as that might sound, because I used to always think that's how the other half lived. You know, if getting rich or getting successful was chance or luck, or you won the lottery, so someone was born with a silver spoon. I would tell myself that it is completely possible. And that's why I like the science of getting rich, because there's a truly mathematical science to achievement. And I would tell myself that, you know, if you want to succeed in life, get as clear as possible on the direction you want to go, find people in that direction, and don't let anybody try and dim your light. Anybody that is not in harmony with where you want to go, cut them out your life as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Great advice. I suppose a question would be, how would you convince young you to take it on board?
That's also a good question. So I think by being a role model, that's why I find it very easy, to be honest, to stay consistent with health and fitness and the gym and stuff, because I want to be an example from who I would be inspired by. Because if somebody wasn't living the life that I wanted, or wasn't good to his family or the people around him, didn't have like good physique, but he was trying to tell me this back when I was younger, I probably wouldn't listen, to be honest. But if somebody was really good to his people around him, he was happy, perhaps had a great life and great shape, I'm like, I would pay more attention to it. So that's why I find it quite easy to stay consistent with good habits, because I'm always thinking, how could I lead by example for my younger self that would look up and actually be inspired and want to listen to what I was saying.
Yeah. Good. Love it. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we finish up? Anything else they need to know about Fraser?
I don't think so. One thing I'll just finish off with is, it's 2026. If you're listening to this podcast, it's for a reason. One of the quotes, I've actually got it written up on my wall there, and it says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The reason that you've listened to this podcast, you probably know in your heart there's something you're putting off. You probably know that there is something you want to pursue, but you're perhaps limiting yourself from going all in on it yet. And I just want to encourage you to take that step. Ultimately, you know, none of us get out of this game alive, so you never know what is around the corner, what each day is going to bring. You really don't. So I would just encourage everyone to, go all in whatever you're doing. You can always pivot. It doesn't mean you need to be set on this path. If you make a mistake, that's all good. There's just, success is an accumulation of failures, but as long as you're failing in the right direction, you'll find what you really want to do. And one of the questions when I first quit my job that I asked myself was, I wrote down, what is the worst case scenario possible if it didn't work out? And it wasn't that bad, funnily enough. And it just made me realize, wow, I've been in this rut for many years because I was scared to leave. And when I actually got pen and paper and I wrote down what the worst case scenario was, it made me think, wow. And I think I quit like the next month. So that's what I suggest. Everybody, get clear on what you want. Write down the worst case scenario if you went for it with everything that you have got, and you'll probably see that, it's not even that bad. So just go for it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's never that bad. What's the worst thing that can happen? You have to go back and get a job again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fraser, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure the listeners will get inspired, because I've got inspired again from your story. So thank you so much for sharing it. And I wish you all the very best in everything that you want.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you for having me on here. It's been a pleasure. To all the listeners, thank you for tuning in. And stay locked into Adrian's podcast, because he's got such a big heart for helping people here, and I just love what you're doing here and bringing people's stories to inspire more people, because sometimes that's all we need is somebody's story. You might resonate with what I've said. You might resonate with one of Adrian's other guests that he's had on. So make sure you go and listen to the other episodes, because they might just say one thing. You might hear one sentence that just changes everything, and you don't know what that is until you hear it. So
cool. I appreciate that, Fraser. Thank you very, very much. Have a good one.
Cheers.